Very good morning to all students. So today we are going to discuss about drugs for contraception. So before we go into the topic, we'll just have a recap from your first year classes on the menstrual cycle. So as you all know, there are three parts of the menstrual cycle. That is the follicular phase. Then you have got the ovulatory phase where the ovulation occurs. And then you have the luteal or the secretory phase. So what happens during the follicular phase is that FSH rises. The FSH, all of you know, it is produced from the pituitary gland. The FSH is rising. You can see FSH is a yellow colored hormone, and the FSH is rising during the follicular phase, which causes some follicles to mature in the ovary. FSH also causes the ovary to produce estrogen. So you can see the estrogen is rising during the follicular phase. And what the estrogen does is that it exhibits a feedback inhibition on the FSH. So as the estrogen rises, you can see that slowly the FSH will be coming down. And the estrogen also causes the LH, that is luteinizing hormone, to rise towards the middle of the cycle. So what happens in the mid-cycle is that the LH rises, the luteinizing hormone is rising, and this will cause the ovulation to occur during the ovulatory phase. Once ovulation occurs, the ovary starts producing the progesterone, and this progesterone is making the uterus go into the secretory phase. And once this progesterone and the estrogen are rising, so what happens is that it will cause the luteinizing hormone to fall. So you can note that the rise in the estrogen causes a fall or feedback inhibition on the FSH. The progesterone rising puts a feedback inhibition on the estrogen. I mean the luteinizing hormone. So there is a feedback inhibition that you have to keep in mind. At the end of the cycle, you can see both the progesterone and the estrogen. There's a sudden dip of the these levels of the hormone, and then what occurs is the menstruation, the shedding of the uterine lining. This is a very brief of the menstrual cycle. The basic facts that you have to remember is that estrogen rising, it always causes a feedback inhibition on the FSH. The progesterone causes a feedback inhibition on the LH, and LH is required for ovulation to occur. Both the not only the progesterone, but estrogen also has a synergistic effect along with the progesterone to cause a feedback inhibition on LH. So whenever if you want to decrease or you have to prevent the ovulation from occurring, you have to put a feedback inhibition on the LH, and this is obtained by making the levels of estrogen and progesterone to go high. This is a basic concept that you have to remember. And another thing that you have to remember is that sudden dip of the levels of estrogen and progesterone at the end of the cycle, it will lead to the shedding of the uterine lining in the form of menstruation. And you can also have a look that during the first part of the cycle, you see the estrogen is rising, and in the second part of the cycle, it is the progesterone which is rising. So progesterone rises only after the ovulation occurs. This is the normal cycle and the normal hormone levels during the menstrual cycle. With that recap, we will begin the introduction to the contraceptives. So before the drugs were used as contraceptives, there were a lot of barrier methods like vaginal rings, condoms, then IUCDs like copper T, then there were spermicidal creams were there. All these were used for contraception, but these were less acceptable by people. So later on, we had the hormonal contraceptives were developed, and these had a lot of acceptability. Among the contraceptives, you have got female contraceptives and male contraceptives. The female contraceptives, for many obvious reasons, is more popular and more used than male contraceptives. So we'll be dealing with the female contraceptives in this topic, and towards the end, we'll just have a look at the male contraceptives also. Now, the female contraceptives can be oral contraceptives, they can be injectable contraceptives, and there can be implants also. Our major concentration in today's class is on the oral contraceptives. So among the oral contraceptives, you have got combined pills, which are the most popular types of pills. Then there are phased pills. Then there are the post-coital pills, and then mini pills. Then you have got the injectable and implants. So now we are going to look elaborately into the oral contraceptives. So what is the mechanism of action? So what happens is that this is mainly the mechanism of action of the combined pills. The combined pills contain both estrogen and progesterone. We'll be dealing with them in the next slide. But for the sake of the mechanism of action, I have just mentioned that they contain both estrogen and progesterone. So what happens is that the progesterone, the progesterone part of the OCPs, they will reduce the LH secretory pulses and the ovulation. So we already saw it in the recap. And the estrogen, it reduces the FSH secretion. And both of these, that is estrogen as well as the progesterone, they have a synergistic effect to inhibit the mid-cycle luteinizing hormone surge. This is what we have seen in the recap also, that both the estrogen, it is the major part is played by the progesterone on inhibition of the LH surge, but both estrogen and progesterone, they both have a synergistic action in decreasing the LH surge. So when LH doesn't rise, there is no ovulation, there is no ovum release. Other than that, the OCPs can also have other functions which will help in contraception. For example, the progestin, it can make the cervical mucus thick, which will prevent the sperm penetration. They also modify the uterine and tubal contractions to disfavor the fertilization. And suppose the fertilization occurs also by chance, they make the endometrium unsuitable for implantation. And now imagine a situation that implantation also has occurred. Then they have the ability to dislodge the implanted blastocyst or interfere with the further implantation. So you can see the major mechanism is to inhibit the LH surge and to prevent the ovulation. Now, if this step has already occurred and the ovum has been released, then the OCPs have a role in preventing the fertilization. Now imagine this also has happened, so they can prevent the steps like the implantation. And if implantation has also occurred, then they can even dislodge an implanted blastocyst. So when you are asked to write the mechanism of action of OCPs, you have to mention all these mechanisms, but the emphasis should be laid on the first mechanism. Now, what are combined pills? So these are the most popular kind of oral contraceptive pills that are there in the market and used by the public in large. But they contain estrogen and progestin in fixed dose to be taken on all days of the treatment cycle. They're called as the monophasic pill. Now, in the recap, we saw that in a normal cycle, it is the estrogen which is rising during the first half, and then you have the progesterone coming up into the picture. Okay, but in this case, what happens is when you're using a combined pill, you're not taking that fact into account. You're giving both estrogen and progesterone throughout, on all the days. It is not actually mimicking the normal menstrual cycle. They are a monophasic type of pill, means that giving both the estrogen and progesterone on all days of the treatment cycle. So what is the estrogen that is there in the combined pills? It is ethinyl estradiol. It can be in different concentrations. Earlier, the pills had 30 micrograms, but estrogen component of these pills were associated with a lot of adverse reactions. So later on, the amount of this estradiol was actually reduced to 20 microgram in the combined pills. The progestin that is there in the combined pills is either levonorgestrel, 60 micrograms, or it can be desogestrel, 60 microgram, or it can be gestodine, 40 micrograms. So this you have to remember which kind of estrogen is present, which is one, that is ethinyl estradiol, and progestin can be of different types. And you have to remember the names of the progestins, which can be there in the combined pills. So actions, what it does is that progesterone and estrogen, obviously, they synergize to inhibit the ovulation by preventing the LH surge. That should be clear to you by this point of the class. Then progestin, when suddenly you give it this drug for a number of days and then suddenly you withdraw or stop it, what happens? There's a sudden dip in the levels of the estrogen and progesterone, and it will lead to menstruation. So progestin ensures prompt bleeding at the end of the cycle. And again, when you are giving this combination, the estrogen component of this OCP, as I mentioned, it has got a lot of ADRs. One of the dreaded ADRs of the estrogen is the hypertrophy of the endometrium. Now, when you give it in a combination with progesterone, there is a check on the endometrial hypertrophy by the estrogen. So the progesterone part of the pills has got both these advantages. That is, it induces the bleeding at the end of the cycle, and secondly, it prevents the endometrial hypertrophy. Now, how do you give this? So one tablet is given for 21 days, starting from the 5th day of the menstruation. And then after 21 days is over, there is 7 days of tablet-free period. And then again, during which time the menstruation occurs, and the patient can start the next cycle from the 5th day of the menstruation. So usually you have got this day-wise packs available, which help the lady to remember taking the pills on time. So what happens, you can see the green part. So there's an indicator, the arrows are there. So usually they start taking it from, this is the first pill to be taken on the 5th day of menstruation, and it is continued like this. The arrows are there day-wise. And you can see there are 7 days of tablet-free period. And during these 7 days, usually some iron tablets are there given to fill the period. And during the 7 days of the hormone-free period, the menstruation occurs. And the lady can start the second cycle of OCP from the 5th day of the next menstruation. So efficacy is very high, 98 to 99.9% efficacy is there. That means if a patient is on this particular combined pills, that is the patient can ensure that there is 98%, 98 to 99.9% of not conceiving. So it's a very high efficacy rate of these combined pills. Then you have got the phased pills. So I already mentioned to you that the combined pills, they are monophasic pills. That is, you are giving both estrogen and progesterone on all days of the menstrual cycle. We have got a phased pill, which is actually trying to mimic the normal menstrual cycle. And this will actually prevent the overload of these hormones on all days. So what it does is that estrogen is kept constant on all the days, while progestin is kept low in the first phase and it is increased in the second and the third phase. So in this way, what happens is that we can keep the levels of the hormones less during the cycle. And this is recommended for women over 35 years. And for those females who are not having the withdrawal bleeding while on the monophasic pill. So these women might be requiring a greater mimicking of the menstrual cycle. So they may require a phased pill. And if other factors like risk factors like hypertension, or there is some indication of the uterine hypertrophy, so we try to keep the hormonal level low. So in such patients, we can use the phased pill. Then you have got the progestin only pill. The other name for progestin only pill is the mini pill. Now, we mentioned throughout the class that the component that is causing a lot of ADRs is the estrogen. Now, in the progestin only pill, it contains only a low dose of progestin. The estrogen is eliminated because it can cause the ADRs. Now, it is administered daily without a gap. And this is recommended only for women in whom the estrogen is contraindicated. But the problem with this progestin only pill is that it has got a lower efficacy, and because of this reason, it is less popular because people who are on this pill might conceive. Yeah, it also causes irregular cycles, and you can see the chances of ovulation is about 20-30%. That is, the efficacy is very low as compared to the combined pills. So although this progestin only pill is devoid of the ADRs, its efficacy is very low as compared to the combined pills. Next one is the emergency or the postcoital pill. Now, this is the pill that is used for preventing unwanted pregnancy following unprotected intercourse, or in the case of rape. So the common regimens which are available for postcoital pill are levonorgestrel 0.75 milligram, 2 doses, 12 hours apart. Or you can give one single dose of 1.5 milligram of levonorgestrel within 72 hours of intercourse. Another method is ulipristal 30 milligram single dose within 120 hours of intercourse. Now, this is also having the same efficacy as the regimen with levonorgestrel, but here the advantage is that the time, that is, it becomes 120 hours of, like, the extended time is there for the patient to take this tablet. Another regime is using mifepristone 600 milligrams single dose within 72 hours of intercourse. So these are the regimens which are available, and these should be only resorted to emergency prevention or emergency prevention of unwanted pregnancy. It cannot be taken for any intercourse because it has got a very high failure rate. So it is only resorted to be used for as a measure in case of unwanted or unprotected intercourse or rape. Now, the adverse effects of the oral pills, these are mainly resorting to the combined pills which have got higher concentration of estrogen. Some of the non-serious side effects which are usually seen during the initial days of use are nausea and vomiting, headache, spotting, breast discomfort. So these areas usually disappear after some days of use of the OCP. The side effects which appear later or on constant use is weight gain, acne, chloasma. Chloasma is the pigmentation of the cheeks and nose, and chloasma can even be seen in pregnant women. The chloasma can be associated with the melasma, its other name. Chloasma can be used with can be associated with the use of combined pills. Then pruritus vulvae, then carbohydrate intolerance and precipitation of diabetes, mood swings. These are the side effects that appear later. And there are serious complications which are quite dreaded. That is the DVT and pulmonary embolism. This is mainly because of the estrogen component, which can increase the coagulability of the blood. Then coronary and cerebral thrombosis, which can lead on to myocardial infarction and stroke. Hypertension. There are chances of genital carcinoma like vaginal, cervical, breast. It's all mainly because of the estrogen component. Benign hepatomas and gallstones. These are all the serious complications which can be associated with the long-term use of oral contraceptive pills. So for the same reasons, because these are associated with a lot of ADRs, there are contraindications for their use also. Absolute contraindications include patients who are having history of thromboembolic episodes, then moderate to severe hypertension, hepatoma, then there are suspected or overt malignancies of genitals or breast, porphyria, in impending major surgery, because there's always a chance of post-operative thromboembolism in such patients. Now they have to be taken off the OCPs at least 4 weeks before the surgery. When relative contraindications are diabetes mellitus, obesity, smoking, undiagnosed vaginal bleeding, then uterine hypertrophy. In mentally ill patients, people who are above 35 years, even with mild hypertension, migraine, gallbladder disease, these are all relative contraindications. Means you can give the OCPs in such patients, but with caution. So that finishes the contraceptives, the oral contraceptives as pertaining to the contraception. Now, there are other health benefits of contraceptives. That is, there are some other uses of contraceptives. They reduce the menstrual blood loss, and they can be used for individuals who may be having menorrhagia. So these OCPs can be prescribed for a few months. It is also used to regularize irregular cycles in women who are coming up with complaints of irregular menstruation. Then it can be prescribed for individuals who are having premenstrual syndrome, dysmenorrhea, then people with endometriosis, pelvic inflammatory disease, then fibrocystic breast disease and ovarian cysts. So you will see the contraceptives being prescribed for all these conditions also, other than for contraception. Now that finishes the oral contraceptives. So you have to remember that oral contraceptives is the major, the short note that is usually asked from this topic. And the whatever we are going to discuss now is the completion of this chapter. So whenever you're asked about OCPs, you have to mention the classification, that is the types: combined, phase pill, mini pill, and the postcoital pill. And then you have to describe the mechanism of action, describe individual type of pill elaborately with the drugs and the doses. Doses are very important because the way you have to prescribe is very, it should be known to all of you. And then you should also mention the adverse reaction, contraindications, and other health benefits of OCPs in a short note. That will make your short note on OCPs complete. Now we'll deal with the injectable contraceptives. Now they were developed to avoid the use of daily oral pills. So sometimes it becomes inconvenient for the patient to use a pill daily. So this type of injectables will overcome the disability because of that. They are given intramuscularly as oily solutions, and they are quite effective. However, they have got a lot of limitations. That is, some of the studies done on animals indicate that they have got carcinogenic potential. They can cause a lot of menstrual irregularities. Another problem is that the return to fertility when they are stopped is quite delayed. When you are stopping the OCPs, the females become fertile within 1 month or in a very short period. However, the return to fertility after using the injectables is delayed. Then weight gain, headache, and it can also be lead to some amount of osteoporosis with constant use. So they are recommended only for women who are unlikely to use the oral methods of contraception. Now, the preparations which are available for using are mainly a long-acting progestins like dipomedroxyprogesterone acetate. They are given deep IM once in every 3 months during the first 5 days of the cycle. Another preparation is norethindrone, which is given 200 milligram at 2 monthly intervals. So you can just have, this is at a monthly interval, so you don't have to take everyday tablets. Next is the implants. So these are the contraceptives which are implanted under the skin or inside the uterus. So under the skin, you have got the Norplant. You can see the picture here. Set of 6 capsules of levonorgestrel are implanted under the skin, and they release the drug for 5 years. Then you have got Progestasert, which is a progestin impregnated IUCD containing 52 milligram of levonorgestrel that is released locally in the endometrium, and it can be maintained for 5 years. So these are also long-term contraceptive devices. Now, the final part, that is the male contraceptives. And the male contraceptives are not popular because of the following reasons. If any drug that is used for male contraception, it cannot just to suppress the spermatogenesis without affecting other tissues. Means there will be some effect on the other tissues. Another thing is that spermatogenesis takes 64 days. So any drug that you're using to prevent this has to be acting for 64 days or longer. Then the gonadotropin secretion inhibition inhibits the testosterone synthesis also. So obviously, you know the unwanted outcomes of the decreased testosterone synthesis. Then there are risk of adverse effects also. Because of all these reasons, the male contraceptives are not at all popular. Some of the drugs which have still been tried for male contraceptions are anti-androgens, estrogens and progestins, androgens, superactive GnRH analogs, cytotoxic drugs like cadmium, and there's another drug that is given orally, Gossypol, which is a non-steroidal compound from the cotton seeds. So these are all drugs, these are all can be considered as theoretical drugs for male contraception. None of them are effective or popular. So the summary of the class is that the female contraception is the one that is being followed and used by the masses, and among the female contraceptives, the oral contraceptives have a greater popularity as compared to the injectables and the implants. And the short note that is usually asked for your exam is oral contraceptive pills. So you have to be thorough with oral contraceptive pills. So thank you.